Hi, this is Jason Nickleby, Assistant Director with the Minnesota State High School League, and this is football officiating training tape number 6. Doing a good job so far. Thanks to all of those that joined on the Zoom on Wednesday evening to talk about mechanics and philosophy and some rules items. It was a really good discussion, and you can review that link in the memo for this week. Again, when we're looking at these plays, not picking on any one official, crew, player or team, just trying to learn from these plays. And again, hopefully you're using these situations to discuss as a crew in your pre-games prior to your games. So with that, let's take a look at some plays. On this first one, let's take a look at the block by the running back, the lead block, fullback, and there's an overpower at the point of attack, and we have a good patient whistle. Runner doesn't go down, stays in bounds, and we have a touchdown. So good coverage. Again, good patient whistle and allow the play to play out. So well done there. But relative to offensive holding, again, we're going to be looking at point of attack, yes, material restriction, yes or no. And if you say yes, then what category is it? Is it grab and restrict, hook and restrict, takedown? If you can put it in a category, then it would be a foul. Now, if we have a player that just gets absolutely tackled, even if it's away from the play, we want that called for offensive holding. But if it's just a grab and restrict, a little bit of a jersey grab and so forth, we don't want that called. Certainly not away from the play. In this particular case, this is a good no call for offensive holding. It looks ugly, but if you see when the contact is initiated with the fullback and the defensive player, by the time the contact occurs, number two, the defensive player is already losing his feet. So he didn't lose his feet as a result of the blocking action or any kind of holding action from the fullback. He was already losing his feet, losing his balance, and the fullback just helped him to the ground. So this is not offensive holding. This is a good no call. Again, it looks ugly, but it is at the point of attack, but the restriction is not there. He goes to the ground because he loses his balance at the time of contact, and then they go to the ground. So this is a proper no call for offensive holding. He was already losing his feet. There wasn't holding action that resulted in this player going to the ground. So uh, just make sure we see the whole play, start, develop, and finish. We see the blocking action, how a player got to the ground, and we can have that explanation. In this case, line of scrimmage and back judge should probably have our vision on this block, and we have a proper no call in this case. Well done. On this one, I want to talk about helping the runner considerations. We're going to have a pretty long run here from scrimmage that's going to result in a touchdown. And as this runner breaks out of this group, his teammate grabs him by the shoulder pads, by the helmet, and keeps him from falling to the ground. And he is called for helping the runner by the umpire who's trailing the play. And again, unusual. Don't see this happen very often, but we have a nice announcement here by the referee, and it's a big play in this game, but correctly called. Remember, when we're talking about helping the runner, we're talking about clearly pushing, pulling, grabbing the runner and not the pile. So in this case, the teammate grabs a hold of this runner as he's getting out of this group here. And if 32 doesn't hold on to him, it's likely that the running back hits the ground. So this is a proper call for helping the runner. Again, doesn't happen very often. as we talked about in the training tape last week, if they clearly put their hands in their rear end, a clear tush push, that is also a foul for helping the runner. In this case, if number three isn't grabbed by his teammate, it's likely that he hits the ground and the run ends right there. So this is a proper call for helping the runner. I know it's a big call, big play in the game, but we stepped up and made the call that needed to be made. And we're not looking for these things, but when it jumps out at you like this is a foul, and we're really pleased that this was called. Again, in a big spot in the game, the right call was made by the umpire here. So well done. In this one, I want to talk about mechanics and then our coverage, especially as it relates to second level blocks and who sees those. So we have a first down gained, and it's right near the bench area, and we turn and face players um, as the play ends and officiate the dead ball action. So that's really good. But there is a lot of blocks on this play that we have to consider. So one block is a double team, so we're not going to concern ourselves with that. So we need to get our vision off of the double team block, and then we need to move to the next possible threat for foul. In this case, the block that we want to look at is by number 60 as he gets to the second level. And right as the runner goes by him, it appears that he hooks the defender and takes him down to the ground. And so, based on this view, I would say that this is offensive holding. It's at the point of attack, material restriction, and the category is takedown. So the question becomes who sees this block? How do we get to this action and determine um, if this is a hold? And it's right in the middle of everything, a really tough uh, block to get. I think based on where players are and how this play develops, referee probably has the best shot at this, but we also might not see the whole thing because, again, we need to see the block start, develop, and finish. We can't guess because let's say we get to this block late and it actually was a legal block. They just happened to go to the ground and we throw a flag because we think it's ugly and therefore it's illegal, and we would be wrong because we guessed. In this case, it appears that the offensive player gets his hooks into him, turns him, and takes him to the ground right as the runner is going by him. So this appears to be offensive holding, but I would just encourage you as a crew to discuss coverage, especially as it relates to second level blocks, who's looking where, and if you have a second level block that's suspect, who can see it and who can get a flag on the ground if we need it. So good one to discuss. I think it's offensive holding, but it's also a really tough play from a coverage and mechanics standpoint, and just one I would encourage crews to talk about. On this one, we have several second level blocks as well. And again, talking about coverage and who's looking where, we have a suspect block at the 36-yard line that we need to take a look at. We're ultimately going to have a fumble. We beanbag, kill the clock on recovery by the defense, and then signal that the defense has recovered. So very good coverage relative to the fumble, definitely out, and we have a clear recovery by the defense. So well done on our coverage with the fumble aspect of this play. But let's take a look at the block. It looks like a pulling right tackle actually um, that meets the defender right at the point of attack, right as the runner is going by, and it appears that the defender engages into the offensive lineman and then loses his feet after contact, and then again, similar to um, a previous play, they just go to the ground together. So not not quite as sure on offensive holding on this one as I was on the previous play, because it certainly looks like the contact causes him to lose his feet and not the holding action. But again, from a coverage perspective, who's seeing this block? And I would say based on how this play develops and progresses, the umpire's looking right at this block. We need to see this block start, develop, and finish, determine if there is a material restriction. So do we lose our feet because of holding action, or do we lose our feet because of just contact? In this case, it appears that as soon as that defender hits the offensive player, he starts to lose his balance and then they end up going to the ground, which is not offensive holding. So I think a no call is proper here. But again, did we see it and did we process that? So just make sure we talk as a crew about where we're looking and who's going to handle this type of blocking action. Okay, again, on this one, mechanics and coverage and offensive holding considerations, but we also have a horse collar tackle at the conclusion of this play as well, which is properly called. And the covering official is going to have both fouls. So a lot to process. Um, we have to work through it, as the referee and umpire with the calling official to get the information for both. But once we get that information from the calling official, we do need to move forward with this one pretty quickly. Um, we don't need to ask anybody. We don't need to talk to either team, besides the line of scrimmage official providing the information to each team. But we need to get into the announcement on this one a little bit quicker. We ultimately make an excellent announcement, but we do need to get into this a little bit more efficiently.
There's 2 fouls on the play, one on the offense, one on the defense. Hold, offense number 84. Personal foul, horse collar tackle, defense. By rule, those penalties offset. We'll replay first down.
So there you go, replayed first down. It's like
So a very good announcement. No issue there. Really good. Just we need to get into that a little bit quicker, be a little bit more efficient. But I'll start with the horse collar tackle. If they get into that shoulder area, collar area, yank them to the ground, this is a foul for a horse collar. So this is really good. This is a dangerous tackle. They can get hurt really seriously when these kind of tackles occur. So a nice job of getting this action. And the best part here is that we threw for a hold and then we continued to officiate. We didn't give up on the play. Sometimes we like to admire our flags and so forth, but we didn't do that here. We continue to officiate, which is outstanding. But let's take a look at the hold. We're looking at the block by number 84, and it appears to me that the defender engages the offensive player and just continues to drive him backwards, and there's no real restriction. There's no taking the feet away, doesn't hook and turn them, doesn't pull them to the ground, anything like that. So again, looking at our criteria and our process for evaluating offensive holding, is it at the point of attack? Yes, yes, it is. So we can move on to the next question. Is there a material restriction? And I would say no. We can't put it into a category because it doesn't occur. I think we go a little bit too fast on this one as the line of scrimmage. I like that we're looking at this block. That's good. But I think we go a little bit too fast. And umpires, we should be looking right at this block. And if a block is called in our area of responsibility or a foul is called in our area of responsibility, regardless of what it is, we need to have a conversation with the calling official and just say, hey, what did you see there? And have them explain it to you. And if they can't explain material restriction and a category, then we probably need to pick that one up. And so I think this is one the umpire could have helped on to say, hey, I saw that block the whole way. There was no real restriction. I think we need to pick that one up. So I think if we would have worked that way on this one through that process, I think we would have ended up with just the horse collar tackle and forced 15 yards from the end of the run and moved from there. But we end up with a hold and a horse collar tackle. They're both live ball fouls. We're going to offset those and move back to repeating the down at the previous spot, which is what we do. So, good one to talk about process of if a foul is called in our area, and then also excellent job of continuing to officiate and picking up the safety foul. On this one, let's take a look at the contact with the passer and just talk about our coverage and mechanics. We do a nice job here, line of scrimmage, come down in the white, square off, and pick up the forward progress spot. We're killing it for a first down, so just really well done there. But let's take a look at the action with the passer, and you notice that we have a free defender. Number 52 breaks through the line, and anytime we have a free defender, umpire and referee, we need to get our vision to that player because that is the most likely player to either foul or be fouled. Um, first of all, at the line of scrimmage, typically when a free defender gets through there, the instinct of the lineman or a back is to take them to the ground because if they don't do that, their quarterback's going to get hit. So we typically see offensive holding a little bit more often with free defenders or illegal block below the waist and those kinds of fouls. But then if we don't have that, there's also a higher incident of roughing the passer and targeting and so forth. In this particular case, we see that the defensive player, his contact is not necessarily late, but he drives all of his body weight onto this passer, and this would be enough for roughing the passer. So, considerations for roughing the passer. We're looking at high, low, late, and punishing. Those are the categories, so to speak, that we're looking for relative to roughing the passer. This would be a punishing category. So driving our body weight into the passer on the ground is enough for a foul for roughing the passer. If 52 turns his body to the side and doesn't put all of his body weight into the back of this passer, no problem. It's not late, so we would be good there. So we just need to turn our body to the side and avoid punishing the passer with our body weight. When we're talking about high, we're talking about targeting kind of contact, um, a pass that's been thrown, not a runner, but a pass that's been thrown where we whack the face of the passer, that would be enough. When we're talking about low, there isn't a specific rule in the NFHS rules book about low contact, but if we drive our shoulder, helmet, etc., into the knee of the passer without any regard for trying to make a tackle of a runner, that's enough for roughing the passer. And then if it's late, then we have forcible contact, then that definitely is roughing the passer. This is not late, but it's a punishing hit to the passer. But when we're talking about late, we're not counting steps. We're not good enough to count, hey, that was a step or that was 2 steps. If you know that the defensive player can do something different, like pull up, veer off to the side, not hit him as hard, and so on, then we can lay off of roughing the passer. But in a case where they know they're late and they can do something else and they still make forcible contact to the passer, that would be roughing the passer. So keep all those things in mind. Remember, umpires, you have the ability to call roughing the passers as well. So if you see contact, especially when the defender comes from your side, like in this play, you need to have a flag down for roughing the passer as well. We need to stop worrying about offensive holding and other 5 and 10 yard fouls, and we need to focus in on the free defender and contact to the passer on this play. And as I mentioned, we would support this for roughing the passer because we drive our body weight into the back of the passer who's laying on the ground. So keep those categories in mind: high, low, late, and punishing. And if you can put it in those categories and describe it, then that would be enough for roughing the passer. Okay, on this one, we're going to have a long pass play down the middle of the field, and we're going to have pretty significant contact and an incomplete pass. So let's talk mechanics first. Back judges, we need to turn our hips and go. We can't be this close to this action because it just blows up in our face, and we're not in really any position to make a ruling on pass interference or illegal contact and so on. So um, this is one that we need to turn our hips and go earlier. That way we can have a good cushion, perhaps be stationary at the time of this action, and we can make a ruling. So make sure that we're in good position to view this, and that means we probably need to turn our hips and go a lot sooner. And then secondly, just a reminder, um, by rule, when a receiver is attempting to make a pass, they are defenseless, and the only way they can be contacted with force is with open hands or with a wrap up tackle. In this particular case, it appears that the defender does not do a wrap up tackle, does not initiate contact with open hands. So this should be a foul for illegal personal contact against a defenseless receiver. And this rule changed last year, and we're still struggling with it. We talked about this on the Zoom uh, this week about reminder on the defenseless player rules. They're just vulnerable to injury because of their focus of concentration, their physical position, and that's why they can't be contacted with force. And so, just a reminder, anytime a receiver or a defensive back for that matter, if they're trying to make a play on a pass and they get contacted with force, if it's not with open hands or with a wrap up tackle, that is a foul. And we want this called. And I think if we would have turned our hips and ran and been in better position, I think we would have got this one. So, line of scrimmage, you certainly can help on this on pass plays, but ultimately, back judges, this is probably going to be your baby, which means we need to put ourselves in the best position to pick this up. Okay, let's talk mechanics on this one. So we'll start with the line of scrimmage. So we're going to have a run that comes right at us. So we need to back off into the offensive backfield and give ourselves enough room, one, to be safe, but two, to better officiate this play. I like that we maintain the line of scrimmage until a pass is imminent. That's good, but let's work our way into the offensive backfield and give ourselves enough depth and room to work. And we probably need to be in the white a little bit. And I think if we do that, then we're more likely to pick up this face mask foul that occurs at the end of this run um, by the defensive player number 4. We miss it because we're way too close to this action. And the only one that can pick this up is the line of scrimmage official. So again, on runs to our side, we need to work our way into the offensive backfield, give ourselves enough room to work, let the play develop in front of us, and then we can slowly make our way to the forward progress spot. That's the least important thing. We can get there eventually, but we need to officiate the action in the field of play and then dead ball action as well prior to worrying about the forward progress spot. And then umpires, we need to wait for this passer to cross their face. We do not start rolling out until they've done that. We're going to pivot, officiate inside out, and then we can come back to the middle of the field to place the ball, etc., or to officiate the dead ball action. We can continue into the bench area. So in this case, we would want umpires and referees for that matter on their side to continue on officiating the blocks in front of this runner and then assist in getting players out of the opposing team's bench area. In this case, the runner doesn't end up that far into the bench area, but if he would, we would need the umpire or the referee to get over there and help them out. So turn and officiate inside out. Don't start rolling because remember, umpires, once the passer crosses your face, you have responsibility for pass fumble and intentional grounding, roughing the passer, etc. And the best way to do that is to officiate from the angle on the inside versus looking through the back of the passer. So keep those mechanics in mind on a running play of this kind. Mechanics and coverage on this one again. So first looking at the pass here, really tight to the ground. Um, we come down, get a nice spot. Back judges, I like that we maintain a good cushion, but let's get stationary when this action occurs because this could be a really tight catch, and it's fairly tight. And it's going to be difficult to see the football from the back judge position. We're going to need help from line of scrimmage on this, but looks like a good catch. But just try to get stationary at the time that this action occurs just to make sure that we have the best possible vision on this catch no catch action because again when we're moving our accuracy does tend to decrease, so make sure that we do that. Again, like the cushion, that part is good, but make sure that we get stationary if possible. And then taking a look at the blocking action by the offensive line, just a reminder, umpires, you have center, left guard, and left tackle, and then referee, you have right guard and right tackle as part of your initial responsibility. And in this case, the center, um, he gets his hooks into the defender, and it looks like he kind of pulls him to the ground a little bit. Not saying that it's offensive holding for sure, but it sure looks like a snatch down. We've talked about that in the past. Those are difficult blocks to get. Totally understand that. Just want to make sure that we know what our initial responsibilities are and who's looking where. And if the passer's not a threat to be fouled, which he really isn't here, we need referees to stick with blocking action a little bit longer in this case. But if the passer's threatened, then we need to get our vision there. But take a look at the blocking action by the center. Just talk as referees and umpires how you're going to see that, how you need to position adjust to see blocks, to see hands, and do they hook them, restrict, take down, snatch down, and so forth. Because it sure looks like he gets his hooks into them and pulls them to the ground, which would be enough for offensive holding if that's what occurs in this play. But again, talk about coverage, initial responsibility for pass plays and line play. Really interesting and tough play on this one. We're going to have third and long, so pretty clearly a passing situation. We're going to have a pass right down to the goal line, and we're going to have a flag for offensive pass interference by the back judge. I like that we continue to officiate the play, signal incomplete, but again, trying to maintain our cushion. We want to get to the goal line ahead of this action, get stationary, but then once the play develops like this, we need to position adjust to see this action, but um, we need to uh, work through this penalty enforcement. We have a nice announcement. They ultimately want this one. This is one we're going to have to ask the offended team, the defense, because if they decline, it's going to be 4th and 18, but maybe they want this one. So definitely one we want to ask, not as obvious of a choice relative to penalty enforcement. But getting back to the foul itself, as soon as this action occurs, we're going to want to move our way into the end zone perhaps, or more into the field of play just to get a better vantage point because when we're standing where we're standing at the goal line, it sure looks bad and they go to the ground and we ultimately call number 2 for offensive pass interference. And if you look at the end zone look of this, they are both looking for the ball. They're both playing for the ball and they just tangle the feet and go to the ground. This is not a foul, but again, looks really ugly. Tough play for a back judge. Line of scrimmage, can we help? Can we offer information that there really was no distinct pushing act, no overt action by the receiver to play through this defensive back? It certainly appears that they're both looking for the ball, and the offensive player makes a nice defensive play, actually. So, just putting the feet in the opposite shoes, so to speak. If this is a defensive player, we wouldn't think of calling this as a foul. So we need to give both offensive and defensive players an opportunity to try to play the football. And assuming they don't just run somebody over, armbar, grab their shoulder, turn them, etc., prior to the ball arriving, it would not be enough for a foul. And in this case, I think they just tangle feet. They're both looking for the ball. They're both on an even yard line, and it's just a tough one to see from our vantage point. So we need to position adjust if we can, and then line of scrimmage. Can we help offer information to the back judge on this one to hopefully pick the flag up again on this play? But again, really tough play, really hard one um, from where we're looking. Just talk about it, back judges, line of scrimmage. How can we work together on pass plays to piece it together to hopefully arrive at the correct result? On this last play, I want to talk about free kick coverage and then face mask fouls. So we're in good initial position, love our coverage, our mechanics. Probably go up a little bit too far. We need to let the play develop in front of us, and then we kill the clock nice and calm. And we have a foul on this one for a 5-yard face mask. So I would tell you that it's pretty unlikely to have 5-yard face mask fouls. Either they really grasp it and turn it like it appears that they do here, or it's likely not to be a foul. Um, because typically, if they get their hand on the mask area, if they grasp it and let it go, that's not enough for a foul. If they grasp it and turn it, that's a 15-yard personal foul, and that's what appears to happen here. So I know that officials, see action like this, and then when they're not sure, defer to a 5-yard. I would tell you that let's be sure on fouls. On any foul, let's be sure. But in this case, it sure looks like he grabs a hold of the face mask area, twists the head around. This is enough for a personal foul. And I'm glad we have a flag down, but this should be 15. Um, and I think if we don't overrun this play, maybe we have a better vantage point. Referee, can you help looking at this action? But just keep in mind philosophy and just what typically happens with these kind of things is that if they grasp the face mask or an opening and pull it, twist it, etc., that's a 15-yard foul. And it's very rare, if not impossible, to have a 5-yard foul. So um, keep that in mind when you're evaluating action like this. This is a 15-yarder, and again, glad we called it, but make sure we see the whole thing. And if we see a grasp with a twist or a turn, that should be a 15-yard foul. Okay, that will do it for training tape number 6. A lot of mechanics and coverage pieces in this tape, things that I would recommend that you chat with your crews about, especially as it relates to second level blocks, um, scrimmage kicks, free kicks, who's looking where, who's responsible for certain blocks, who's responsible for the runner, and then coverage as plays develop uh, as it relates to roughing the passer, offensive holding, and illegal blocks, legal contact. So a lot of things to consider. Again, as we've talked about many times, if football officiating was easy, everyone would do it. But you guys are out there uh, giving it your best shot every week and appreciate all of your work and your diligence. And Look forward to talking to you next week. Have a great weekend of games. Stay safe and healthy. And again, we'll talk to you next week.